Konnichiwa, hajimemashite, Kunie desu, and welcome back to World of Tanks Blitz. And today is going to be the first episode of the Cupola Chats, which is a new YouTube series for my channel. And for today, we've got our very first guest, and pretty much he is one of the more well-known YouTubers. He always posts on the forums, and he's also my very, very proud tank commander, or rather clan commander, Eric underscore 18989. Pleasure to have you.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, so how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just got home and just looking up to play some battles.
Good to hear. So, first off, introduce yourself. Tell a little about a little bit more of yourself.
Well, once again, it's Eric18989. It's E18989, but I always say Eric. It doesn't matter really. I've been playing Blitz since just a couple weeks after it came out. Been playing faithfully since. Really like the game. Have almost every line completely ground out. I've seen the ups and downs of it and stuck in there, and it's just a great game. I still enjoy it.
Mm. How long have you played the Blitz before?
Oh, I've been playing just for a couple weeks since it came out. So from the very beginning, pretty much.
Ah, that's amazing.
2014.
Mm, nice. In so far of your experience, name your top five tanks and why.
Ooh, that's tough. See, it changes because there's so many with all the buffs and nerfs. The tanks change. My number one right now, I'd have to say, if you guys have subscribed or watch my channel, it's probably no secret. You probably already know what I'm gonna say. It's got to be the Jag Tiger 8.8 with the 105 mounted. That thing is just a beast right now. But the Tier 8 German heavy premium, the Luva, that's what I call it, or low, I call it both, either one. That got buffed too, so that's a good one. But if you want to say top five favorite tanks, I'd have to say the Jag Tiger 8.8, maybe the Leo 1 in Tier 10. I just love that one. I love the Type 59, the E25. Let's see. I like the SU-76I. Call me a seal clubber if you want. But that thing it's just overpowered, and it's fun to bully tanks. And then I'd have to say the Type 62 also, or the Rudy. Maybe those two are tied. They're both excellent at Tier 7. They still are excellent also. Even with the Tier 7 heavy buffs, they're still just phenomenal tanks.
Mm. So now let's go to the opposite. What are your bottom five tanks? Like the top five tanks that you absolutely hate to play.
Dude, there's a lot that I hate. And, there's a lot of tanks that I really love in this game, but there's a lot that I really hate. Oh, man. The T28 HTC is probably, well, maybe the FCM, the Tier 3 Premium French FCM 36 Pack 40. That's got to be my number one hated tank. It would better for the game if it was not in there. They need to just delete it. It would make the world a better place if that tank did not exist in game. It's
Um,
just that bad.
what makes you think that?
It can't go anywhere. It can't shoot anything. All it has is penetration, but it has no armor. It moves about the same speed as a paralyzed tortoise. It's horrible. It's just not a good tank.
Mm,
It's good just for getting blown up. That's it. I would rather drive Tier 7, the Stur Emil German tank destroyer. I'd rather drive that 100 times over again than drive the FCM Pack
mm,
36 Pack 40. So I'd have to say that's number one, then the T28 HTC, and then maybe the Stur Emil. Now, some of the other worst tanks in the games I haven't played, like people are saying, I call it the SAU 40, the SAU 40, a French tank destroyer, also in low tier. I haven't played it, but I heard that one's real bad. And also, I don't like the T20 that much. I think that's kind of been left in the dust. So I don't know if that deserves to be in the worst five, but it's definitely lacking. That's coming to mind.
mm, I see. What are the other number four and number five?
Oh man.
I know it's tough.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm looking at the tech tree right now. Let me look at my garage, and I'll pretty much just probably be able to pick a couple out. There's a lot that are there's no point to it really. Um, Let me see. There's so many in tier 3 that are just so blah. like the T127, M3 Light, LTP, the Tetrash. I mean, they're all kind of the same tank. So they might not be pathetic tanks in and of themselves, but since there's so many like them, what's the point of them? So they may be okay performance wise, some of them, but I don't know. They never leave my garage. So from that point of view, I think those are some of the worst too.
So far, what's your favorite map? Your most favorite map, and something that you're hoping for whenever in the queue, you're praying that you get to this map.
Man, I don't know if I have one of those. I mean, I like the ones that are simple. I want to say something like Middleburg only because right now a lot of people know to all go hills for the most part. So I want a map that's simple enough where the entire team will all go the same way.
Mm,
Those are the ones I like. So Middleburg, oftentimes the team goes hills, or if not another one's coming to mind. I know a lot of maps that I hate. I hate the Dynasty Pearl. I hate it. It's just like Himmelsdorf. I think that map is too small and it lacks diversity.
mm,
Same thing as him. It's just a flat battle. It's just there's really not. I mean, yes, there are hills in Dynasty Pearl, but it's too open. There are not enough hills that you can really hide by. And if you go out there, I don't know. I don't like it. It's not that fun for me because it's too small.
mm. I see. Okay, moving on. What is your normal preferred playstyle when you're playing World of Tanks Blitz?
I'd have to say medium tanks for sure. That's why I like tanks like the Type 59 because it can do everything. It can hold a line if you're in a proper position with the hull down.
Mm,
It can put out damage if you're in the proper position with it also. So the medium, and it can also flank. It can do a lot of different things. I like medium tanks because they have flexibility now. Are light tanks fun too? Oh, of course, they're a blast to play, but they don't have as much flexibility in terms of armor and bouncing a shot here or there when you need to. Medium tanks, they're just the all around well rounder tanks. Those are personally my favorite ones to play.
mm. So, in relation with that question, what's your most favorite tank? Oh, rather the most favorite medium tank, like something that you, whenever you feel stressed out because of some bad players, it's something that takes you off your stress.
Well, I like the Type 59. That would definitely be one. And then if I had to choose others besides that, it would be in Tier 6, the T-34-85 Victory or the Panzer IV-S. They're a lot of fun. And Tier 6 is kind of my stress-free tier. I go there when I just want to have fun. I'm sure to win more. Usually you don't run into a bunch of really bad teams as far as like being matched up against players that are way better than you. Sure, that'll happen, but it'll more often happen tiers 8, 9, and 10, which I still play a lot of tier 10 and 8, 9, and 10. But as far as stress-free good mediums, the Type 59 or the Panzer IV-S for sure. I like tanks that have strong turrets that you can use their gun depression.
Mm, well said. Um, what are your normal tier? What tiers do you normally play on? Like, do you prefer to play low tiers or high tiers?
Oh, high tiers, definitely. I love playing tier 10. I have many tier 10s, almost all of them actually. I love playing tier 9. Really, everything from tier 6 to 10. It's more weighted on the top tiers, definitely. Occasionally, I'll drop down and play a couple tier 3s. Somebody in the clan will be doing a different grind. Hey, I need a random platoon tier 5. Of course, I'll play that and platoon with them and everything. But I definitely try to stick to the upper tiers. They're a lot more fun. And you face more capable teams and capable players too. So
Mm. Moving on. What's your opinion about fancy those fake tanks like, let's say, the Nameless, the Lupus, the Helsing, Dracula, and the others, even especially Tankenstein.
well, here I have a lot more respect for the Tankenstein than I do anything else. Because is there some fantasy things on it? Yes, but dude, at least some of those guns, the two guns and the turret is from a KV4. The hull is the Porsche Tiger from Tier 7. I mean, at least there's some truth to it. Yes, there's a lot of fake in the Tankenstein also, but as far as the other ones, the ones that are completely made up, I mean, I'm not a big fan of them, really. I don't play a lot of them. I won't buy any of them, and it's really because of lack of interest. But here's the thing: just because I don't personally like them, that also it doesn't mean that I'm against them. Because I mean, I don't have a problem with them. The only time that I personally have a problem with a made-up tank is when it comes in completely way overpowered, like the Lupus, for example. I Come on, dude. You know, you have and I know Blitz is not meant to be historically accurate. It's a video game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you have something that's completely made up be so overpowered and just smoke everything, then it kind of tends the game to be pay to win. And I don't think the game is necessarily like that, but there are certain tanks that would question that at times. The Lupus being one of them.
There were some issues, or like I've seen some posts in the forums, like some people want the return of the T49A back. I believe you've played that thing before, the Tier 7 T49.
I didn't play it because I chose not to get it because I wanted the spare parts. In that event, you can choose which crates to get. You can either get the T49A for a little bit or you can get the spare parts. And that I chose the spare parts because I knew I'd be able to keep those on a tank rather than having the
Mm.
T49A being taken away. So honestly, I have not played the T49A.
What do you think of, even though you've not played it, what do you think of the T49A itself? If you've seen them, if you've taken them on prior, during the missile exercise event?
I'm glad they had it as a temporary thing. I don't have a problem with the tank at all. I think it can be fun, but I think that if you add something like that permanently, that's not what this game originally is. And it's going to make a lot of the people that have played it from the beginning, okay, now it's like a circus. Now, what next? A tank with a chainsaw on the front or something? I mean, you could go anywhere with it next.
Yeah, I concur. Pretty much, if the T49's implementation would really break the game, and it's not going to be as fun. The tank itself may be fun for some, but there's just some people who prefer to play World of Tanks Blitz the traditional way instead of because basically the T49A is a sort of an artillery already.
Yeah.
So have you read of what is going to happen by 4.7?
I've read up a little bit at all. Did you have something specific in mind you want to talk about?
What do you think of the buffs? Well, let's say maybe the nerf. Yeah, it's already given that the tigers are going to be nerfed. The 62A will get an increase of penetration, I think. Um, for the British, the 7/1 and the FV will get alternative guns. The one that fires heat and the one that fires the premium hash. And basically, they'll give the old hash penetration back with the new guns.
I like that. That's a great idea. There's some people that like it both ways, and I mean, in real life too, the tanks were introduced with one gun, and then later on, maybe the gun was upgraded, or they switched to a different gun, mounted a different gun on the same tank. So I'm all for the diversity and mounting different guns to choose the play style. Man, I'm all for that. I think that's a great move for the game. The Cent 7-1 and the FV4202, I think that's a great move for both of those. And we should see a lot more of those in battle. And when played correctly with the Hesh, man, they're fun. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As far as the T62A, I'm in favor of any mediums getting their penetration back up a little bit. I mean, obviously, I don't think they're going to give them, 20 more points of penetration and make it like 276 or anything. But especially with the lower alpha that the 62A and the 140 has, they definitely need a penetration buff. They could use it at least. The tier 10 medium that really needs the penetration buff, though, if you ask me, is the STB1. That thing has so much potential, but the gun is just so weak.
Hmm. Well, I concur, but the STB1 is like a very all around medium, at least in my opinion, and it's like a perfect medium in the one package. Like, it's got a very good mobility, enough for to do a lot of flanking, which means that pretty much you're gonna have to find a way to make use of its gun because it's, like you said, it's weak, so you gotta find another avenue way of flanking.
Yeah, but even when you flank, it depends. If you have the side of their turret, sometimes the gun won't even hit. The gun handling on it is lacking. I think that I mean I want to like it. I want to like it so much. It's hard for me to not like tanks, really.
I see.
But with the STB-1, a medium tank needs either penetration to be able to penetrate the tank, right? Or if it doesn't have penetration, give it good gun handling so you can penetrate weak spots and you can aim in on it. But this tank doesn't have either. That's really what it fails at, in my opinion, and that's what sets it back in tier 10. It feels like it's a great tier 9, but the gun does not feel like a tier 10 gun.
I see. Moving on, let's go talk about some of the updates. Let's go to update 4.6. What do you think of the Chinese tanks? What is your reaction? What's your opinion about them? And would you want to grind for the tier 10, the 121?
I am grinding for it. Yeah, I'm on tier 6 right now on the Type 58, which is very similar to the T3485 Victory, but it's a little bit worse than that. Just has some penetration, low penetration, and some other issues with it. But it's not a horrible tank. It's definitely workable. The iFree experience to the tier 5, the Type T34, that was okay. It was okay. It's definitely, I mean, it still has a good gun. It's not as good as the Russian T34, but those were solid. I'm looking forward to the tier 7. I'm hearing a lot of good things about that, but everybody is saying that the tier 8, 9, and 10 are very underpowered. And I think Wargaming is trying to play the safe side and not introduce a tank that is really overpowered like the Lupus again or the Keniatsu or anything like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to play it safe, and I think that there's room for these tanks to be balanced, aka buffed a little bit in the future, and hopefully they'll be buffed in a couple patches by the time I get to them. But I like the idea of Chinese tanks. I like the idea of a medium tank doing big higher alpha damage, but longer reload, because I think that adds diversity in the game, and I think that's a very good thing. I've been looking forward to China coming out for a while, and I'm glad it's here.
Mm. Are there any other nations that you are looking forward to be released in the future?
Honestly, no. I don't. I mean, I have an console, but I haven't played that in forever, and I'm only to tier like 5 on like 2 lines, so I'm not that familiar, to be honest.
I see.
Blitz is my main game. I'd have no experience at all in any other tanks games, pretty much.
I see. Moving on. Um, let's discuss tactics. When you're facing a super heavy tank like the Mouse, the E100, the IS-7, normally what are your tactics when you're trying to take them on?
Well, I don't want to be the one they're shooting at, number one. So I want to wait until they shoot somebody else. And this is the same tactic. It doesn't matter if it's a medium tank that I'm driving or a heavy tank that I'm driving. I want to wait till they shoot someone else and then try to pop out and sink a free shot. I cover this tactic very thoroughly in my Unicum Training 103 video, How to Peekaboom. I really rely on that tactic so often. And if I'm driving a medium tank, then I know I can out reload the heavy tank. So I'll wait till they shoot somebody else, then I'll pop out and sink 2 shots and then go back to cover. So
Hmm.
I'm all about trying to get that free damage.
What about when you're have you been in a situation when you're in a 1v5 and 1, or like you know like those Coloban of situations?
Yeah.
How do you how do you normally pull that off? What's your tactic when you're stuck in those situations?
Shoot the ones with the lowest health. Secure the kills. Well, the 1 versus 5, typically, there's 1 or 2 tanks that are low health. Shoot the ones that are low health first. Secure those kills. Don't make it a 1 versus 5 situation. Don't bother shooting at a tank that's full health when you have 2 guys that are 1 shots or 2 shots or something. Make the 1 versus 5 a 1 versus 3. Then your odds are going to be a lot better. Then make the 1 versus 3 a 1 versus 2. Then your odds are going to be a lot better. And I work through that based upon how much hit points they have left and also how much they are an immediate threat to me. So
Hmm.
often I'll drive around if a full health guy is rushing me, I'll try to choose not to fight him if I'm in a faster tank, and I'll try to look for a shot on the lower health guy and try to chisel him down like that. Otherwise, there's no hope.
I agree. Another question. There's been some issues about seeing heavies sniping in a distance. You've seen that before, right?
Oh yeah.
What do you think of those players who snipe in the back in their heavies?
I'm not a fan of them at all. They need to understand their role, and I think that if wargaming would introduce maybe a mandatory training in order to not just by tier, but by class, right? Heavy tank training maybe in tier 5, or medium tank training in tier 6, or maybe whatever tier you break it in. Say you break tier 7 for the first time, and you get the China's T-34-1. Well, that's a medium tank. Maybe you have to do like forced medium tank situations where only a medium tank can win in that situation, and you can't play it until you get that license or something. I mean, they can call it boot camp, they can call it a certification. Many of the great games in the past, I'm thinking of one. If many people have that are listening have ever played Gran Turismo, all right, man, that those games were awesome. You used to soup up your garage, but there were certain races that you could not enter unless you got that license. There was like the A license, the B license, then you had the international licenses, and you had to pass the harder test to make you eligible for the harder races that earned more. Well, I don't see why they can't implement some sort of system like that in Blitz. I think that'd be a great thing. It would increase gameplay for everybody. It would increase the player base and make them a lot better. It would promote teamwork because in those training videos, you would have to use teamwork. So therefore, you've already done it by the time you're playing in it. I mean, I think that'd be a great thing.
Hmm. All right. Moving on. Um, what about? Let's discuss about your tactics when you're in a medium tank. You said that medium tanks are normally your favorite type of tanks, right? The game style and everything.
Oh yeah, I love mediums.
What is your advice and suggestion, and what are your tactics on how to be a very good medium tank player?
Know when to choose your fights. Just because you see a tank does not mean you have to shoot that tank. Just because a tank is in front of you does not mean you have to fight that tank. Never hit point trade ever. Don't win the game with your gun. Win the game with your brain. Learn how to think about situations and choose your fighting. Choose who you fight. Ask yourself, why am I here? You know, why are you going the directions you're going? Should you stay there? Are you going to take damage? Then don't do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
make it a point to stay alive and use your flexibility. That's why I like the medium tanks, because many of them have tougher turrets. They have a good rate of fire. Even if you don't penetrate a tank that's coming at you, if you have a good rate of fire, you can throw an HE shell into the drive wheel to track a tank. He repairs it. Throw another one in real quick. He can't repair it. Well, then retreat. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you have so much tools at your disposal. You're flexible to do it in any way. And I like medium tanks because they make me think about things like that. And I think that that's what wins battles.
Mm. Okay, if medium tanks are really your favorite, how do you adjust to light tanks gameplay? Like, I know that light tanks are very different from medium tanks, very big, but the way that some of the game style is like flanking, it's almost similar to what what the medium tanks do. Have you Are you able to adapt well into light tank gameplays?
Oh yeah, I love me some light tanks too. They're a lot of fun. I play it very similar to the medium tanks, except for I play those less aggressive. I keep my distance more. I try to use the light tank camouflage, and I try to use the light tank view range. Whereas in the a medium tank, typically going to have a little bit of armor, so I can go a little bit more aggressive with those and get a little bit closer to the enemy. Whereas light tanks, I'll relocate faster because I'll be farther away, and the enemy tanks will have a greater distance to get to me. So I'll have more time to relocate. And yeah, I pretty much play them the same, except for I keep my distance more with light tanks.
Mm, nice, well said. Moving on. What what's your favorite light tank?
Probably the Type 62. It's just so flexible and it's just so much fun. Great rate of fire, 200 alpha damage, solid gun depression, great credits. I love premium tanks. I just do. I love tier 10s and premiums. Those are my two favorite kind of tanks in the game.
Mm. All right. Moving on. What about for heavy tanks? You've already said the I-7 is your favorite, but what kind of tactic would you recommend for those heavy tank players? Like, as much as possible, there is a need. We can see that there's a need to reduce some heavy tank players sniping because they don't see the potential. Because when you're selecting your tank, you have to know the potential of it and such. Yeah. So what's your suggestion for those heavy tanks for heavy tank players?
Heavy tanks, I think it really depends. You have to look at the battle beforehand and look and count how many heavy tanks you have. Like if you spawn on Fort Despair and you're a heavy tank, this is what happens. Too many times, heavy tankers, if you're in a heavy tank, there's players that think, well, I'm in a heavy tank, so I automatically go to heavy alley. Listen, if the other team has five heavies and you're the only one, don't go to Heavy Alley and Fort Despair then, because you're going to get crushed 5-on-1 at least, probably 7-on-1, right?
Mm,
So there's a difference between knowing your role, but also your role is always relative because every map is different, every battle's different, every tank types with the teams are different. So that's the biggest thing I would say is to the heavies is number one, don't go alone. Don't say I'm too slow to go up on the hills. No, in Middleburg, no, you're not. You're too lazy to. But you because you can go up there if you want. Know when it's time to swallow your pride and go with the rest of your team. If you're down, have the disadvantage on heavy tanks, don't go to the city to a city map. If you're play a heavy tank, the best advice I can give you is learn to count how many heavy tanks your team has and how many heavy tanks the other team has and adjust your strategy accordingly with every single battle.
mm, amazing. All right. Let's move on from World of Tanks Blitz. Let's go on to the other games category. What do you think, or rather, what are some other games that you play when you feel stressed out of Blitz because of some of the bad games that you've been getting? What are the games that you normally play to get this stress out?
Honestly, I really haven't played that much. I mean, I don't play that much games right now. I have a World of Tanks console account, but like I said, I've played that maybe two or three times in the past year. I really don't have time to play that much because I like Blitz so much and I play it, especially with my YouTube channel. Man, it's just I just have a lot of fun doing that. And I have two kids and I work a very good job in ministry, so it's pretty demanding with time, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. So I
Mm,
really don't have time to play a bunch of other games. It's just World of Tanks Blitz for me. But I grew up playing all kinds of games. I was a Nintendo guy. They're a lot different back then, a lot simpler, like Donkey Kong, Mario 3, those kinds, the old school ones.
yeah. I was a Mario. I was. I also grew up playing Mario, and I was also a Nintendo kid, back when I was alone. So anyway, what drove you to start your YouTube channel?
The goal of my YouTube channel, really, that's what really drove me to start the YouTube channel. I saw the need that I spent so much money on this game on tanks that were junk. I'm talking like FCM 50T. Man, I should have never bought that thing. Uh, I spent money on tanks that really aren't that good at all. AMX CDC, I shouldn't have bought that thing either, right? Panther M10 used to be great, but it got nerfed big time with it when it lost its preferential matchmaking. Now that thing collects dust. I probably have over maybe $200 of tanks that I regret buying in my garage. And I think that the one of the goals with my YouTube channel, really the main goal, the thing that drove me to start, is to help others not make the same mistakes I did. That's why a lot of my YouTube channel is dedicated towards tier 10s and premium tanks mainly, though, is the main thing that my YouTube channel is dedicated for. Premium tanks. I want to tell people about good deals and I want to warn them on what tanks to stay away from. And I already promised that I'm going to give brutally honest reviews on every single tank. That's why I have my series like Premium Tanks Worth Buying, you know, kind of like a buyer's guide to let people know, listen, these are tanks you're not going to regret spending money on.
Mm, that's great.
And
Yeah.
and then also to help to improve the player base too.
Mm. All right. That's nice. What a nice answer there. Let's move on to the next category of this of the Cupola chats, wherein the special guests throws the host a bunch of questions, at least until they ran out. All right, so give it your best shot.
Yeah, I have a question for you. I've always wanted to ask you this. Um, Now you've had a YouTube channel for much longer than me. I've only had it for about what 10 months. How long have you had yours?
I've basically been that YouTube channel was since 2015. It's like 3 years old.
Yeah, and most of your content is for Blitz. Is that not correct?
Yeah, it's mostly for Blitz, but some of my early videos way back were from World of Tanks PC because I before I played Blitz, I played World of Tanks PC before.
Okay. Well, you seem pretty established in the game, and all those questions are kind of leading up to this question. I was very surprised one day I logged on to Discord and I saw a message from you saying, "Hey, I saw your recruitment thread on the forums. I want to join OCS." And I was just surprised because you seem so established in the game. What drove you to join OCS?
Technically, I've been through a lot of clans. Some actually just broke down, some just never worked. I actually commanded a clan before I joined OCS, but unfortunately, because of the lack of interest and the officer corps wasn't really that established because my time to fix everything was really lacking because of my college studies, and three of my other friends really didn't find the time to try to fix everything. So I had to find another place where I can be able to fully enjoy the game. But I still do enjoy the game with those guys. We have our own Discord server. I platoon with them a lot whenever they're free, and they ask me for some requests too. So yeah, we still do relatively do have a lot of fun. But for now, if as the clan stands right now, it's only a few members and pretty much it's very inactive. So what drove me is just to find some clan where I can both have fun and at the same time be more competitive and pretty much like you know like you're like building something for the community, like you're doing your contribution. I like to do some contributions to other clans because I really haven't been doing that much contributions in some of the clans that I've been on.
Well, great. I think you've been you fit in well in OCS, and we are casual but competitive, and that's exactly what you just described. So, uh, let me ask you about events. We Blitz has seen a lot of different events. What are some of your favorite events? Let's just say, what's your favorite event and what's your least favorite event that was ever done in World of Tanks Blitz?
Um, uh, I I didn't actually play Blitz until like 2015. Basically Blitz was released back in 2014. I was in the PC for like since 2010. I've played World of Tanks every World of Tanks title for from 2010. So technically I've been longer pretty much. So my favorite event of Blitz, it's gonna have to be the Girls in Panzer event. Pretty much, technically, I'm not really gonna hesitate to say that I'm an otaku. I watch anime. I collect figures. I cosplay sometimes. But pretty much this this Girls in Panzer event is quite one of the biggest anime related events for a video game because they released three tanks: the Anko, the Kuromori Mine, the Tier 6 Tiger, and the Hetzer Kame SP, which is a Hetzer on Tier 4 but with the weaker gun. All of those three I've played it before, but the Anko I've played it earlier back in 2015 when it was first introduced because to promote the Girls in Panzer their film. And honestly, I found all those three tanks very enjoyable. The Anko is my favorite, Tier 5. Second is the Crusader. Um, the Kuromorimine, I had a lot of fun with that, but it just doesn't have the same fun factor as my enjoyment with the other tier 6 heavies. Um, don't go on to the KV2 for that for me because I really don't play Russian heavies that much. So, moving on. For the Hetzer, the gameplay was quite okay, but because of the gun, it was quite boring. So, I played the Hetzer Kami SP is quite the least of the GOP trio that I've ever played, and I would absolutely love if Wargaming would introduce another Girls and Panzer event, like let's say they're just going to put this anime version of the Churchill, anime version of the Sherman, the Centurion. Pretty much, there's a lot. So,
I want the anime mouse.
oh yes.
That would be awesome.
But I honestly think that they're only just going to give it the camo like what they did with the Chiha. The Chiha actually got the anime camo years ago, but after that they never got to release it. And I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward if Wargaming would be able to release it again.
I don't have a problem with the anime tanks because, the Hetzer, for example, dude, it's a Hetzer. Like, I love that thing. I was just thinking about that myself. I want to do another review. I call it the Ninja Turtle because that turtle on the side looks like it's giving a kick. Dude, I love my Ninja Turtle. I think it's a fun tank. And the other ones at tier 6 and 7, it's a Panzer and a Tiger. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah,
The skin is just unique. I got nothing against those ones at all. I like those ones.
yeah. For the least favorite, it's gonna have to be the missile exercise. Like the T-49, some say it's overpowered because it's got those artillery skills, like you can just fire and point your reticle at anywhere just so you can hit. But to be honest, the T-49 really isn't that OP because the shots can either high roll or not. The it's got it's basically it just doesn't have that much fun factor that I've experienced before. Even though if it's missile guided, it's not really that fun, and there's really no overpowered thing about the T-49A. But I have to agree that the T-49A really shouldn't have been introduced in the first place. But the event actually gave me my first premium tier 9, the KPF Panzer 70. I really couldn't pronounce it, but I normally call it as the Camper Panzer or the Camping Panzer because normally I sometimes camp in the Camping Panzer because I I really don't want to get out in the open and fire and then reload for 15 seconds. That's really atrocious. It's not really that much fun when you're reloading for 15 seconds and you're in the open with that not much of a good armor.
Yeah, I run calibrated shells on it, man. So you're talking about a 15-second reload. I'm like, man, that sounds awesome. I have a 17-second.
So yeah. Next question.
Honestly, I don't think those are really the only two I wanted to ask you. Really, I mean, nothing else comes to mind. I mean, many of the other questions that I had, you've already asked me, and we kind of both put our input in on them.
Yeah, pretty much. I have to agree with you on that. Um, Also, I forgot to ask you. What are your opinions on? You've already said that the Soviet line is your most favorite, right?
Yeah, but I like a lot of different ones. It's not my favorite by much, but I would have to say it is my favorite though.
Um, uh, what is what are your if you consider the Soviet line to be your favorite, what is your opinion on other tank lines such as the American tank line, the British tank line, which is personally my favorite, um, uh, what is that? The French line, um, the Japanese line, and the German line.
I like that they all have something unique about them. Americans typically have tough turret armor and solid gun depression. Japanese tanks typically have a little bit more mobility and good gun depression, but no armor for the most part. Obviously, when I think of the French ones, I think of autoloaders, and I mean that's with the exception of the tank destroyer branch. which are a little bit more rare in game, anyways. Typically, when you see French tanks, they're the autoloaders. And then you have the British also that are just have very unique guns, very unique guns. The FV215B at tier 10 has a very unique gun for a heavy tank. Obviously, the 183 is a unique gun, right? And the FV4202 also with its Hesh as in the Cent 7-1, they're just very unique. Even the lower tiers with being the pea shooters, but good pea shooters like the Comet, the Care Bear, that's the Carnarvon. I don't know if I'm saying I call it the
Care
Care Bear though at tier 8, yeah. And
Why?
then the AT-15, they have unique guns, you know. So I like a lot of pretty much every nation. I've ground out every nation, pretty much almost. And I like the diversity that they all have a different flavor. I don't think that either one of them is necessarily a bad flavor, but I appreciate the different flavors.
Mm. Um. Also, another question: why do you call the Caernarvon the Care Bear?
Because it has really good armor. Like the turret armor is good, and the front upper plate is good. And if played right, that thing can be a bear. It can be like in a good way. It can be as tough as a bear. That's why I call it the Care Bear.
I agree, and pretty much the Caernarvon is like my favorite tier 8 heavy. It was actually the first tank that gave me my 1v5 situation, and
Nice.
when I was platooned with one of our clanmates, Custom. Shout out to you, Custom. He was in his ISU and I was in my Caernarvon. I was left to one shot. We were in mines actually. I remained hull down and all I had to do was keep people spotted. They actually really couldn't move on. I was left to one shot and he was hiding in the back. No one could spot him, and pretty much we actually thought that things were starting to go bad for us, but unfortunately the enemy team really didn't see that taking my tank out of the game is the most viable option for the enemy team to win, but instead they charged one by one. The Black Prince got obliterated after I tracked him. The IS-3 got obliterated. The pretty much every They were charging one by one against me, and none of their shots really penetrated. And
Hmm.
Custom was eating up every of the damage, and that was actually, I can tell you, the first time that I've ever been stuck with a 2v6 situation with a platoon mate.
Yeah, that's awesome. The Care Bear is very underrated. Like I said, you have to play it well, but if you play it well, it actually has a pretty high ceiling.
Yeah, even even the Care Bear can actually 1v1 an IS-3 or the what's the other tank, the KV-4. Um, I honestly feel like the Caernarvon is like the most comfortable tier 8 heavy I've ever played, because who couldn't really say no to, even though with the low alpha, it's got a very good penetration enough to go through the front of a KV-4 and a fast rate of fire.
Yeah, and it's accurate too. 0.30 dispersion, and that's like before any equipment. That's good.
Well, yeah, it's a British tank, and pretty much the British have some of the best guns and the best accuracy in the game. That's why
Yeah,
I love the British tech tree.
yeah.
So, yeah, are there any other things that you'd like to throw?
Nothing comes to mind, man. I really appreciate you having me.
Thank you very much. For the last question, what is your suggestion or rather your advice for those players in World of Tanks Blitz?
Get better, everybody. No matter how much where you are on the spectrum,
Yeah,
everybody get better.
yeah,
That will improve the game better. Be a team player, all right? Don't hide behind your screen and act like you know it all. Humble yourself and say, learn to know when somebody else on the team is right and you're wrong. That will help your team.
mm,
And that will help you be a better player. Because part of being a better player is not just always insisting when you're right, it's knowing when you're wrong and learning from that situation. That's the best advice I could probably give.
I fully agree with you on that. So, anyway, that was the Cupola Chats, guys. Thanks for watching. If you guys enjoyed this interview, the very first episode of Cupola Chats, please consider giving it a like down below, subscribe, and I will also leave a link to my Tank Commander's video YouTube channel down in the description below. Follow him, guys. Subscribe him. He's absolutely one of the most truly best players I've ever met, It's an honor to be with you here, and I hope that I get to be able to do more stuff and as well as do more platoons with you, man.
Hey, you too, man. Thanks for having me on channel, and yeah, I'll see you on the battlefield.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video and in the battlefield.